Welcome to this deep dive, and today we're looking into the work of Masaru Emoto,
Mm-hmm.
who made some pretty fascinating and, let's be honest, controversial
Yes.
claims about the power of human consciousness, like our intentions and emotions,
Yeah.
to impact, believe it or not, the physical structure of water.
Right.
We've got his experiments, we've got some papers analyzing his methods,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of different opinions out there.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to try to figure out what, so to speak, holds water.
I like that.
So to start off, maybe you can just remind everyone what Emoto's central claim was.
Sure. So his main thing was that when water is exposed to positive intentions,
Cool.
like if you think good thoughts towards it or you say nice things to it,
Right.
when you freeze that water, it forms these beautiful symmetrical ice crystals.
Okay.
But on the flip side, when you expose water to like negative intentions,
Uh-huh.
if you yell at it or think bad thoughts,
Sure.
the ice crystals come out all distorted and kind of ugly. And it wasn't just thoughts. He believed music and pictures could have similar effects.
Really?
Yeah, he even did this experiment with rice, like in jars.
Okay.
He said the rice exposed to like positive words fermented nicely,
Uh-huh.
but the rice exposed to negative words just rotted.
It sounds wild. I mean, I've heard of talking to your plants, but talking to rice and water.
Yeah, it's definitely out there.
I mean, yeah, has his work been, like, accepted by the scientific community?
It's been met with a lot of skepticism.
Yeah.
Mainly because his experiments lacked those rigorous scientific controls you want to see.
Right. You need that to really rule out other explanations. So
Exactly.
has anyone tried to, like, replicate his work in a more controlled setting?
They have, actually.
Right.
There was this double-blind study in 2006 published in Explore, the Journal of Science and Healing.
Okay.
And they had something like 2,000 people in Tokyo all sending positive intentions
Wow.
to samples of water that were all the way over in California. Then they had these independent judges who were blind to, which samples were which.
Yeah.
And they rated the crystals from the treated water as more aesthetically pleasing.
So hold on. Even from that distance, they saw an effect.
It was statistically significant, yeah.
That's pretty wild.
And then in 2008, they did a triple-blind replication study,
Okay.
this time with 1,900 people in Europe,
Wow.
sending intentions to water in California again.
Okay.
And again, they got statistically significant results.
Interesting.
And this time they used both a proximal and a distant control group, which is cool.
I don't even know what that means.
Basically, it's like having an extra layer of comparison to make sure the results are really due to the intentions and not something else.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And when they combined the p-values from both studies, the results were even stronger.
So does that mean, like, case closed, intention influences water?
It definitely adds weight to the idea, yeah.
Okay.
But it's still tough to completely rule out other things.
Like what?
Well, for example, how do you control for unintended intentions?
What do you mean?
Like, what if someone involved in the experiment, even if they're not directly sending intentions,
Right.
is like subconsciously hoping for a specific outcome?
Oh, I see.
Or what about all the human decisions that go into setting up an experiment?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really difficult to account for all of that.
Right. Because if the researchers themselves believe in the possibility, even a little bit,
Exactly.
couldn't that, like, subtly influence how they design the experiment or interpret the results?
Exactly. And that's what's called the experimenter effect.
Okay.
It's a big challenge in research, especially in, it feels like, parapsychology.
Where it's hard to totally eliminate the subjective element.
Right.
So it seems like even with these more rigorous studies, there's still room for doubt.
There's always room for doubt in science, and that's okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But even setting aside Emoto's crystals for a moment,
Okay.
there's this whole other idea of water memory, which is this concept that water can somehow retain information from substances it's been in contact with,
Yeah.
even after those substances are long gone.
It's fascinating, right?
And this ties into things like homeopathy, where they use highly diluted solutions for medicinal purposes.
Exactly.
So are you telling me that, like, the water remembers the substance it was diluted from,
That's the claim, yeah.
even if there's, like, not a single molecule of the original substance left?
That's where it gets really mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. So how does that even work?
Well, there's research suggesting that extremely low frequencies, or ELFs, might be involved.
Right.
Some studies have shown that if you store these ELF frequencies electronically,
Okay.
you can actually replicate the effects of the original substance.
Wait, so you're saying, like, the water is picking up these frequencies from the substance,
That's the idea.
and then it stores that information somehow.
And even when the substance is gone, that stored information can still have an effect.
This is like science fiction or
Yeah,
something.
I know, right? But again, this type of research is pretty controversial.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mainstream science is very skeptical.
I bet.
They often point to things like, Emoto's methods, the lack of randomization in his experiments as major flaws.
Right.
But then you have people like William A. Tiller who suggest that something called supercooling.
Supercooling. What's
But
it?
so when you cool a liquid, like water, below its freezing point,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't solidify, it stays liquid.
Okay.
Tiller proposed that subtle temperature variations during the supercooling process
Okay.
could actually influence how the crystals form.
Interesting.
So maybe it's not intention, but these tiny temperature changes
Yeah.
that are responsible.
So on the one hand, we have these, intriguing results. And on the other hand, we have some valid concerns about the methods and potential alternative explanations.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
It is a mixed bag. So where do we go from here? I mean, are we supposed to just accept all this or reject it?
Well, I think one of Emoto's quotes kind of sums it up.
To which one?
He said, "Water is a blueprint for our reality." I think it highlights how water might have this deeper connection to, well, everything.
I mean, if that's true, if water can be influenced in these ways,
Yeah.
what does that even say about the nature of reality itself?
It's a pretty big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah.
And what about this whole idea of water memory? Where does that fit in?
Well, those are questions we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued.
Me too. There's a lot more to unpack here.
Sure.
A lot more.
All right, well, we'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the mysteries of water.
Looking forward to it.
See you then.
See ya.
Mm.
Welcome back to our deep dive into water and intention.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, from Emoto's crystals
Yeah.
to the idea of water memory,
Mm-hmm.
and even, dipped our toes into some pretty wild theoretical physics.
It gets pretty deep, right?
It does. It does. So I'm curious, where do we go from here?
Well, we can't talk about water memory without mentioning the work of Luc Montagnier,
Oh, yeah, the Nobel Prize winner.
the one and only. He actually did research on water memory, too.
Really? What did he find?
He claimed to detect DNA sequences in water,
Okay.
even after it had been diluted to the point where theoretically there should be no DNA molecules left.
So, way beyond homeopathic levels of dilution.
Way beyond. And he used those classic homeopathic methods like repeated dilutions and shaking.
Okay. And what did he actually measure?
He reported detecting electromagnetic signals
Okay.
that matched the signals of the original DNA.
So he's saying that the water somehow remembers the DNA it was in contact with.
That was his conclusion, and it created a lot of controversy, obviously.
I mean, how do you even explain that?
Right. A lot of scientists dismissed his findings as artifacts
Okay.
or experimental errors.
Right, like something went wrong in the experiment.
Exactly.
But his research was still published, wasn't it?
It was, but in a journal that focuses on unconventional scientific ideas.
Okay, so maybe not the most mainstream publication.
Not quite, but still, it raises some interesting questions.
For sure. I mean, if we take his findings at face value,
Yeah.
how do they even fit with what we know about physics and chemistry?
Well, that's where some theoretical physicists have stepped in
Okay.
with ideas that get a little, well, out there.
Lay it on me.
One theory is called topological geometrodynamics.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
I know, right? It's usually just called TGD for short.
Okay, TGD.
And it suggests that water might have this dark component.
Dark component. What does that even mean?
It's kind of like matter that doesn't interact with electromagnetic forces
Okay,
in the same way that regular matter does.
so it's invisible to us.
In a way, yeah, this dark component could have unique properties
Uh-huh.
that might explain how water can store and transmit information in ways we don't fully understand yet.
So basically there's more to water than meets the eye.
Potentially.
Yeah,
And maybe this hidden aspect is where the memory resides.
interesting. It's like water has a secret life.
Maybe it does. TGD also involves this concept of macroscopic quantum coherence.
Okay, break that down for me.
Basically, it means that large groups of molecules, like in water, can exhibit quantum behavior.
So they're not acting individually, but as a unified whole.
Exactly, which could have all sorts of implications.
Like what?
Well, for one, it could explain some of water's unique properties,
Yeah.
like how it's denser as a liquid than a solid, or its unusually high surface tension.
Right. Those are weird.
They are, and maybe macroscopic quantum coherence is the key.
So instead of individual water molecules bouncing around,
Yeah.
they're acting more like a synchronized swimming team.
That's a great analogy.
Uh.
And maybe this interconnectedness, this coherence,
Mhm.
is how information is stored and transferred in water.
Wow. It all starts to feel very, I don't know, philosophical.
I know what you mean. Like, maybe things aren't as separate and independent as we think.
Exactly. So where do we go from here? Do we accept all this, reject it?
I think the best approach is a healthy dose of cautious curiosity.
Okay.
The evidence for water memory isn't exactly conclusive.
Right.
And a lot of this research is, well, outside the mainstream.
But we also don't want to just dismiss it out of hand.
Exactly. We need to stay open to the possibility that our current understanding might be incomplete.
So we keep learning, keep exploring, see where the evidence leads.
That's the spirit. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the theory.
Right.
And I'm curious, what about the practical implications of all this?
Right. Does this research actually have any impact on our everyday lives?
That's a great question, and one we'll explore further in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, tease alert.
Yeah.
But for now, maybe we can leave our listeners with something to ponder.
I like that.
Yeah.
What if water does have this hidden intelligence, this memory?
Yeah.
What might it be trying to tell us?
Good question. Welcome back to the deep dive.
We're in the final stretch now.
We are. We've been exploring this fascinating and, let's be real, kind of weird world of water and intention.
It's definitely out there.
From Emoto's crystals to water memory, we've even touched on some pretty mind-bending theoretical physics.
TGD, macroscopic quantum coherence, the whole shebang.
The whole shebang.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to bring it back down to earth a little
Okay.
and see how all this connects to, our everyday lives.
I'm all for that, grounding it in reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's a question. We all drink water, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully.
And if it's true that water can be influenced by our intentions, should we be sending good vibes to our water bottles before we drink?
It's an interesting thought, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it kind of makes you look at water differently.
Definitely. Not just as this passive substance,
Right.
but as something more dynamic, maybe even responsive to our thoughts and emotions.
So you are what you drink takes on a whole new meaning.
Potentially.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if the quality of water goes beyond just its chemical makeup.
Right, like where it came from, what it's been exposed
Does
to.
that have a subtle influence on us?
That's a trippy thought. And what about the environment?
Ah, yes.
I mean, water is essential for all life, right?
The foundation of it all.
So could we use intention to, I don't know, influence the health of our oceans and rivers and lakes?
It's a bold idea.
It is.
Yeah.
Like, what if instead of just trying to clean up pollution physically, we also tried to, send healing energy to the water?
Like a global meditation for water.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe harness the power of collective consciousness.
You know, history is full of examples of things that seemed impossible.
Right.
Until enough people believed in them and worked together to make them happen.
Think of social movements or, in some traditions, the power of prayer.
Exactly. It makes you wonder what we could achieve if we all focused our intention on healing the water.
It's a powerful thought. And it kind of brings us back to that Emoto quote.
Water is a blueprint for our reality.
That's the one. If water reflects our inner and outer worlds, then maybe by changing ourselves.
Becoming more loving, more compassionate.
Exactly. Maybe that could actually influence the water around us.
It's a beautiful idea.
It's a reminder that we're not separate from nature.
We're all connected.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into water and consciousness, maybe the most profound discoveries aren't found in labs or experiments.
But within ourselves.
Exactly. By exploring our own connection to water.
The water within us and all around us.
We might just unlock some of its deepest mysteries.
Mysteries that could change how we see the world.
And if you enjoyed this exploration of water and consciousness, be sure to click like and subscribe to this Unlock Your Mind podcast for more mind-expanding deep dives.
Stay curious, everyone.